Greetings. In today's video, I want to talk about direct attached storage, or DAS. Why you might need it, what it is, how to use it. Well, this does sort of tie into the videos I did earlier on server farms. It's actual standalone video, even though related. It's just something to think about when you're making a decision whether you need to run your own server farm or not. So I also present that. As an example, my current situation, I am basically living out of my laptop. I don't have any network set up. I've got a couple of drives. I got a external solid state drive and an external mechanical drive. The solid state drive's faster, the mechanical drive's bigger, and they both cost about the same amount of money. But between the two of them, I keep my stuff pretty much in order without having to have the network. And I have a feeling this is probably the vast majority of people's situations they're in, with the average computer user not really needing that whole server network thing. Of course, this leaves out just doing it because, which is generally why I do a lot of stuff, is just because I can do it, and I think it'd be fun to play around with and try. Therefore, I want to take a half hour or so and talk about direct access or direct attached storage, or DAS, and how you can use it. Well, not so much how you can use it, but how it works, what kind of speeds you can expect, things like that. So I guess nothing left now but to get to it. I will say up front that I can probably get away without any sort of network storage. I don't really need it. I don't really need the servers. I just like to have them, and like I say, I like some of the things I can do with them. And again, I understand this is probably not going to be the average computer user's take on things, so that's why I'm talking about direct access storage, or DAS. The one caveat being my media server. There was a time when the internet went out. That was both the cellular and the fiber, and then there were a lot of people who wanted to access my various media files. Of course, with the internet in full force, they want to use their own streaming services. I think they find my taste a bit too eclectic, and I guess a lot of people aren't really a fan of variety in excellence. So be that as it may, that was the one time when a lot of people really wanted to use the network services. But again, like I say, they could get away with just direct attached storage. So yeah. And this brings me back to my main point in that direct attached, I don't know, I keep wanting to say access, I'm not sure why, but direct attached storage is probably good enough for most people who use their computers on a daily basis and don't really need anything additional. I mean, I know people who use USB, SD cards, that kind of stuff for their storage needs and for transferring files between computers. And now in this day and age, there's also external hard drives, both mechanical and solid state, that you can use to transfer data between computers or just have them sitting there as an extra storage space. And if you go all the way to the far high-tech end, you can actually get drive bays. I've actually used a dual drive bay with my backup server, and I mean, there's 4 drive bays, 5 drive bays. Even some of these drive bays even have built-in RAID on them. But yeah, that's where you get up in the higher end. That their only real issue is they're not overly portable. So basically, in this video, I'm going to start with a short history of my exposure to direct attached storage, and this might surprise some people, and it's also going to be aging myself a little bit here, but anyway, let's get to it. So I want to first define what is with the access? It's attached, direct attached storage. And I'm defining as any external connected device that can be used by a computer to store and retrieve data from. And like I said, I'm going to age myself a bit here, but here we go. Some examples. Back in the day, this was high school for me when I first started working with computers. We had the teletype and the paper punch tape. Yes, paper punch tape. It's not magnetic media, but you could type your program onto it, punch it out, use a tape reader to read it in, or you could have the puncher print out data from the computer instead of sending it to the, well, we didn't have a terminal, it was the paper, but yeah, I mean, that was what we had back in the day, and it was okay, not fast, not great, it wouldn't fly today. Back in my college days, however, I got to move up to punch cards. Oh yeah, good stuff. You never had any fun until you had to sort out a deck of punch cards that you dropped. And then when I got my own computer, well, I got a Commodore 64 shown here. I think the original one I used was a VIC-20, but part of my hardware setup for that was the infamous Commodore cassette tape drive that it actually worked pretty good, magnetic tape. It was all serial storage, but yeah, you could save your program, save your data, write to it, any of those things. Of course, I think a year or two after that, I stepped up to an actual Commodore disk drive. These were 5 1/4 inch floppies. They didn't hold that much, but they were random access, and yeah, we're really going at that point. Over the years, however, things have improved. I remember when we moved to CD-ROM, DVD-ROM, that was like 700 and some megabyte storage on CDs, 4 plus gigs on DVD-ROMs. That was a storage. Even had rewritable CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs, although they weren't rewritable that much. In a way, they're sort of like modern flash drives. They're rewritable, but they will eventually break. Speaking of flash drives, once they hit the past the 4 gig limit, they started phasing out CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs, and that became a way for external storage to be attached to your computer. I've seen them nowadays, 128 gigs, 256 gigs, even a few 512 gigs. So yeah, they're a viable option. Again, this is for storage used with your computer. I wouldn't really recommend them for long-term storage. Same thing can be said for SD cards. Like many laptops, my laptop here has a SD card slot on it. So yeah, that's another viable option for direct attached storage. And of course, then we came into the hard drive era, and we had terabytes of storage available at that point with single hard drives, whether they be mechanical or solid state. Yeah. Okay, now I want to talk about what we have available for digital attached storage. Got it right that time, today. So our main media, USB flash drives, that includes SD cards or compact cards or whatever, but yeah, flash memory storage. And again, we're talking attached storage, which is in addition to what's normally on your computer. We're not talking long-term archival storage here. And then we had the external hard drives, again, solid state or mechanical, and we had all sorts of external drive bays allowing you to do multiple internal hard drives to your external drive bay and use them as digital attached storage. They're only, again, the only real problem is they weren't that portable. The most common types you're going to find anywhere today, USB, mostly type 2. Well, some type 2 is mainly going to type 3. Now, type 4 USB is, I haven't really seen consumer availability of that. I've read some articles on it. I don't think it's really super available right now. Then we have Thunderbolt, which is another standards, and type 3 or type 4 are the ones used there. Thunderbolt is generally more expensive than USB. but it's there. Then we have the FireWire IEEE 1394 standard. You find these mostly on Macintosh and iPhones, and this one's actually sort of going away too. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then we have eSATA, or external SATA. That was on some of them I've seen, especially the drive bays, but that's also sort of going away now. So basically in the USB 1 days, our transfer rate was 15 megabits per second. And again, this is a theoretical maximum transfer rate. eSATA was popular then because you get 1.5 gigabits per second, and FireWire could get you 400 megabits per second. That was FireWire 400, the first version, first or second version. It was one of the versions. Anyway, SATA 3.0 came around. That raised things to 3 gigabits. USB 2, 480 megabits, and then FireWire 800 megabits. So at that point, a lot of people were going eSATA and FireWire. And then USB 3 came out with their 4.8 gigabits and 3.1 with their 10 gigabits, and all the other ones just sort of started passing away. I haven't actually talked about Thunderbolt here, but it has similar speeds to USB 3.1, USB 3.2. But yeah, that's Thunderbolt and USB 3 have sort of become the current standards. Like I say, USB 4 is on the horizon. We'll see where that goes. But yeah, and again, I'm talking theoretical maximum speeds here. These are not things you're ever going to actually achieve for a variety of reasons. So, talking about theoretical speeds, let's talk about actual digital attached storage throughput. So, interestingly, the interface speeds are generally given in gigabits per second or megabits per second. A bit's the smallest bit of logical data, 1 or 0. However, if you look at file sizes, they're typically given in gigabytes or megabytes with a big B instead of a small b. One thing I'll say here is I'm not going to get into an argument over base 10, base 2, whatever. This is just a general familiarization. So without getting overly technical, 1 byte basically equals 8 bits. So if something's measured in megabits, it's megabyte, or if it's gigabits, it's gigabyte is going to be a lot smaller. For example, 1 gigabit is 0.125 gigabytes or 125 megabytes. USB 3, as our example, 3.0, 4.8 gigabits per second is actually 0.6 gigabytes per second, or a 600 megabyte file per second. Again, theoretical maximum speeds. In reality, your computer system, your operating system is going to add some overhead. You're going to have buffers that fill and need to be emptied. You're going to have non-perfect components. Again, real world, not theoretical speeds. In real life, your speed is also going to depend on your setup. All this stuff is going to reduce your actual throughput below the theoretical maximum. I had an old laptop running Arch, and I did several test runnings, sending a 1 gigabyte file from a SSD to an external mechanical drive. The transfer speed for the drive, actually, when you start seeing those files, instead of, it went to 350 megabytes per second. That's a lot smaller than the theoretical maximum. However, it didn't stay there. What happened is once the buffer filled up, your speed dropped off down to around 100 megabytes per second. In theory, the file should have transferred in 1 to 2 seconds. In reality, it took about 18 seconds to transfer a 1 gigabyte file from an internal SSD to an external mechanical drive. And that's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. The other thing to really be aware of when we're talking about external drives is the type of connector they use. And as I said earlier, it's either going to be, nowadays, most of them are going to be Thunderbolt or USB 3 plus. You can still find eSATA. I haven't really seen FireWire outside of Apple products, but anyways, we've got a whole bunch of connectors: a USB Type A, USB Type B, Micro B USB, Micro B high speed USB, and then we have the C type connector, which is used for USB 3 as well as Thunderbolt. So like I say, FireWire 800 sort of out of favor outside of Apple products, and those are older Apple products. Actually, I've seen some newer ones, I think, using Thunderbolt or USB 3. They've got that type of port on the bottom. eSATA, again, less common since the advent of USB 3. So USB 3, 3.1, 3.2 are the most common. So there may be some problems with USB dropout. I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't report this. I didn't talk about it. The chief issue is dropping out during a large transfer of data. And there are a few reasons for this. The first one is loose or faulty cables and connectors. If you have a pristine cable, connector, plug, and it plugs in nice and tight, it'll probably work fine. But if you unplug and plug in USB over and over again, they become loose, and sometimes the connections become a little sketchy. So that's one issue. Is insufficient power from the USB port? Well, there's actually two to this. We'll talk about the second one later, but the first one could be some older hardware has limits on how much power it can provide via USB. Or Type C, although I haven't really had that problem with Type C. Outdated or broken drivers. This usually refers to the manufacturer's drivers, not Windows drivers or Linux drivers. I'm not sure about Mac because I don't really use them, but yeah, they can be incompatible. They can break. They can. May need to update them. Power saving settings. This is another one on the USB power. You can control the amount of power from the USB port through your power settings, or whether it actually delivers power. So that's something else to look at. Overheating of external USB devices. Yeah, I had this problem with a USB-C hub. Situation there was in the Philippines where it's warmer than it is here. It was behind my computer, between my computer and the wall, no airflow. It got hot. Yes, it did. Solution was to drop a fan on it, but you know, USB components, they do overheat, so that is something to check for too. Software conflicts, not so common nowadays. They used to be common in older versions of software. I haven't seen it so much on Linux. I saw it more when I was doing Windows many years back, where two programs would try and grab exclusive use of a USB controller, and they'd end up having a fight over it, and one would lose. File system errors. There could, again, USB, all our storage devices, whether solid state or mechanical, they're not permanent. They do wear out over time. You can have file system errors when you're writing the file system, or you can have them develop over time. More prevalent on like flash memory, especially USB pins, sticks, SD cards, unless they're industrial level. Not so much on hard drives or solid state drives, but it can happen. And then actual physical damage. If you drop the thing, yeah, you might have problems. So those are the main reasons I've had issues with it. If you can avoid these or get through them, then, like I say, the current dual drive bay I have using for backup has worked flawlessly. I've resolved all these issues, and it just works. So, yeah. All right, that was a brief dive into digital attached storage devices, various types, the interfaces, some of the problems you're going to have. I'm hoping some people found this helpful. Again, I think the majority of computer users, if they need external storage, they get by with this. They don't necessarily need to resort to network stuff, but to each his own. I just wanted to cover this as an option as opposed to having a network file server, which I'll be talking about in later videos. But yeah, I mean, digital attached storage works. It allows you to transfer data easily between computers. The only real issue is you can't access it from two computers at once. You need to pass the media around if you need multiple people to access them. But if that's not a use case for you, then yeah, there's no reason to actually have a network file server when you can use the digital attached storage. So that's the big takeaway here is depending on your workload, this might be all you need. You don't need to get any more complex than this. So as always, like this video, subscribe, comment. And again, I'm targeting this since it's part of my server farming video series towards when I get back to the Philippines. So maganda umaga sa inyong lahat to all the people in the Philippines. And we'll all catch you on the next video, okay?